The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Well, it was a big weekend. The Krakatoa metal band CD release party for a concept album about a man dying of malaria took place on Friday night, Lewis. Give us the details.
It was crazy. Lots of people, lots of moshing.
Did you destroy the place?
Some blood, lots of sweat.
People bled?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
You know, just falling down, getting hurt, that type of thing.
And there was also like a water spill, which made the mosh pit particularly slick, right?
Yeah. It was like an ice rink.
Was it also really hot in there?
Yeah.
I can imagine the BO just in my mind wafting throughout the place.
There was a fair amount of that.
Yeah. What is it about heavy metal shows that brings a lot of body odor smell?
There's a lot of sweating.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean...
It's that intense.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So if people want to find out more about the album, where do they go?
Well, I mean, the Facebook page is a good place to start.
Right.
Just, yeah, Krakatoa. It's got, it says Krakatoa. The picture is Krakatoa with the album cover, and it says Aberrations.
Excellent. Is there a...
Because there are other Krakatoas, so you have to be careful.
Is there another album in the works now?
No. Not for a while.
I think you should do a concept album about video gaming, like a really brutal video game related heavy metal album. Although honestly, it probably exists already.
I guarantee you it does. It does exist. There are bands that base everything off of video games.
Wow.
Yeah.
Or maybe you could do it on another illness.
Horse the Band is one of them.
What's it called?
Horse the Band.
Horse the Band.
Every song is about something related to video games.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, so that happened. My condo got sprayed by a skunk, which is a little weird. I opened up the door to leave, and all of a sudden it smelled like skunk. And I walked outside, and it kind of went away when I was more than 2 feet from my front door. And even like standing just a foot from my front door, you can't smell it. But as you walk through the threshold into my place, it just stunk like skunk really, really bad. The thing must have literally sprayed the door.
I mean, the good news is it got rid of the smell of socialism.
Right. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But honestly, the skunk smell started coming in through the air conditioning vent. I mean, it was getting pretty bad.
You can't get rid of that stuff.
No,
it's
took
there
a while.
for a while.
After a couple days, it was gone, and it was only on one floor. Fortunately, at least it didn't affect the bedrooms.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that stuff's bad.
Then I ended up having, because of a whole confusion, I ended up having to pick up my dad at Boston Airport. He was flying in from Europe, and that's relevant later in the story. But so I went out there. I figured, okay, I'll have dinner in Boston and then go over there. So I went with my girlfriend. We go to this restaurant, pretty nice place. Hadn't been there before. She's a pescatarian. Orders lobster chowder, which you presume has seafood in it, but not necessarily any other meats that aren't mentioned on the menu. Reasonable?
I gotta keep going. I'll tell you what I told her earlier.
Who told who?
What I told your girlfriend.
Oh, she talked about
soups.
this?
Yeah, go ahead. Just tell the story.
Everybody knows French onion soup has beef broth, for example, right? But when you look at the ingredients and it says lobster, whatever else is in there, and that's it, you assume that's it. Shows up, it appears to have bacon in it. And then the waitress comes out, she explains, oh, I'm a pescatarian, blah, 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 blah. And then the explanation was, let me find out, because it doesn't say bacon on the menu. It's kind of weird. Goes back, comes out and says, it's a lobster chowder, but it's pork-based. It's a pork-based lobster chowder. And I'm thinking to myself, how can you not have that on the menu? Especially since when you're talking about pork, vegetarians don't eat pork, pescatarians don't eat pork, a lot of Jews don't eat pork, a lot of Muslims don't eat pork, people who eat only poultry don't eat pork, right? I mean, I as someone who am not a vegetarian, also wouldn't have liked it.
Yeah.
And then here's the funny thing. They say, don't worry, we're not going to charge you for it. You can order something else. Really? You're going to do me the huge favor of not charging me for the soup that has pork in it, which is not on the menu and which nobody ate? You're going to do us the favor of not charging us for that. What a great favor. Then I found out, though, chicken noodle soup, a lot of times it's actually rattlesnake based. Even though it's a chicken noodle soup, it has a rattlesnake base. Never knew. When
we were at Netroots, there was the corn chowder.
Right.
And she was about to eat it, and I said, you probably don't want to do that. There's bacon in there. And she's like, what? But it's corn chowder. And I said, almost every gourmet soup you order, regardless of the title of what it's called, is going to have some type of meat product infused or in it. And that's totally true. Almost anywhere you go, every type of chowder, anything will have something meat meat based in there.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So, the last part of the story is I get over to Logan
To be
Airport.
honest, it does make for the best soups.
Sure, of course. No, certainly. Who doesn't love duck fat in their soup?
Yeah.
Head over to the airport, and then you know how they have 2 lanes when you go to arrivals, one for buses and limos and then one for cars. And you can just park there. And there's signs that say no waiting around, you know, make sure you're just picking up the person, whatever. So I park the car there, and it's totally dead. I mean, there's nobody there. It was a Saturday evening. There just wasn't busy at that time. And I go in, leave my girlfriend in the car. Then I get a phone call saying there's a state trooper who wants me to move the car and circle around. So I walk out there, and I assume I just have to do that. The guy standing there at the back of my car with his hands on his hips looking at me like I'm a 5-year-old, and he's about to scold me for slapping my little brother in the face with a rubber band or something like that. And he says to me, the reason I let you park here before is because it wasn't busy. Now it's getting busy. It's not a park and go inside. You have to be with your car. I need you to circle around. And I say, okay. And then I just get in the car, and he says, thank you. So then I circle around, which actually takes 15 minutes because it was actually starting to get busy. Come back around, and then I park, and then I see my dad starting to walk out with his luggage, and then the guy walks over, and he says, unless someone is loading their luggage in, you have to keep circling. And I say, but my dad's been traveling, what at this point must feel like days, and he's right there with his luggage, and he's coming out, so he's right over there. And he says, you must keep circling. And then I say, why don't I keep circling? And I just roll up the window and circle around again, which of course took 15 minutes, and at that point my dad was 13 seconds away. So a lot of annoying stuff going on at that Logan Airport. Honestly, he was acting like I had just shot someone who was unarmed, and I was claiming I was standing my ground or something like that. Oh, actually, wait, no, then he would have just let me go. He would have been fine with whatever I was doing.
Probably.
Bad example.
Yeah.
The guy reacted. He was so mad. You would have assumed I was the head of a religion, and he was the head of a religion, and he had just found out his priests were raping children. That's how mad he seemed. Actually, no, the Pope wasn't mad about that either. He helped cover it up.
No.
Well, anyway, the guy was really upset.
Airports are never pleasant.
No, they're
There's
not.
nothing pleasant about an airport experience.
A member of Jordan's parliament is facing attempted murder charges after pulling a gun on his opponent during a televised debate. This is Mohammed Shawabka. He drew his weapon at former Minister Monsoon Murad a few days ago after Murad called him a mafia thief who bought people's votes. Now, of course, nothing dispels the notion that you're a mafia thief when you pull out a gun during a political debate, right? Let's take a look at some of this video, Lewis. At least he had the decency to first take his shoe off and throw that as kind of a warning shot, per se. Let's take a look and listen to some of this video. There's the shoe, and that goes. The guy blocks it with his desk, and then out comes the gun. Okay. Wow. Incredible stuff. Let's continue, actually, and see. Then he's shoving, and they eventually seem to get pushed off the set. I don't know.
Wow.
Wow. Then he finally puts the gun away. What would you do, Lewis, if you're just having political discussion with someone and then they pull a gun out?
Well, this guy certainly wasn't afraid of the gun. He got right in the guy's face.
Yeah. Maybe he knew he wasn't really going to use it, or maybe it's common
on live TV.
Maybe it's common to use to carry around unloaded guns in Jordan.
You know what? You know how a long time ago we talked about how someone was the law about being able to carry a weapon into
a bar.
No, into Congress.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right, remember that? And I said, this is the best thing ever. Please, give them all guns, and let's see what happens. That's what will happen.
Is this what the Tea Party and the NRA would want to see political debate turned into? I wonder. I mean, certainly they're so strident in their support for guns everywhere. Maybe this is a case that they're lobbying for. Maybe this is the ideal situation for a group like the NRA or the Tea Party.
If everyone had guns, who would come out ahead?
The people with more
Republicans
guns,
or
right?
the Democrats?
I don't know. I don't like to think about that. It's a sad commentary, Lewis.
Yeah, you're telling me.
A new global report from the United Kingdom's National Centre of Expertise on Drugs and Drug Laws has revealed that decriminalization of drugs does not increase the rate of drug use at all. This is kind of interesting, and I'm actually surprised by this, even though I think that the cost of prosecuting the war on drugs far outweighs what you could earn as a government by a regulation and taxation, and even putting some percentage of that to a harm reduction through drug use. I'm in favor of that. Lewis.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But that being said, I still assume that decriminalization of drugs did increase usage. Turns out I was wrong, at least according to this study.
Yeah, I mean, I always just assumed it would stay about the same. I mean, anyone who wants to do the drugs is going to find a way to do the drugs.
After examining 21 countries and their decriminalization profiles, including the US, Mexico, Australia, Netherlands, Estonia, and more, the global study concluded that many countries adopt models that are ineffective, unworkable, or sometimes result in greater harms for those who use drugs and for society more broadly. But ultimately, a country's policies concerning drug legalization and enforcement have little correlation with levels of drug use and misuse in that country. So that's interesting. A lot of times the decriminalization model does not work well in terms of how it's manageable. But that being said, it doesn't seem to actually increase drug usage. Pretty interesting stuff.
But would legalization increase drug usage?
Well, that's an interesting question. Does legalization, because it is even more liberal than decriminalization, fall under the scope of decriminalization as well? Is it decriminalization and everything that falls below that? Or is it looking specifically at decriminalization? I think it's probably both.
Yeah.
Now, the other question is, isn't alcohol the drug that continues to really be the gateway drug because it makes people make a number of bad decisions, including trying other drugs or going out and buying other drugs or being convinced to use other drugs, what have you? And that one's actually completely legal.
I don't know if you want to go down this road.
Well, why? What do you think?
Well, I mean, look what happened last time. Prohibition.
No, I'm not making the case that it's that's you're going in you're taking it too far. What I'm saying is, a lot of the discussion is about whether marijuana decriminalization serves as a gateway drug to people using heroin, for example, etc. And then all the studies are based around that. But
you're saying alcohol is a gateway to these drugs.
I'm asking the question and saying it seems that when we talk about drug decriminalization, alcohol is just not even included. And when we compare the harmful side effects of alcohol versus those of, for example, marijuana, it's a little bit odd to me that we don't even talk about alcohol at all. I'm certainly not advocating.
I think people are afraid to. But
well, maybe because they think they'll be accused of advocating for prohibition, which I'm clearly not doing.
But I think you're right. I can almost guarantee you that a lot of the time someone is trying a new drug for the first time, there's probably alcohol involved as well.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
It's very possible. Okay, on today's bonus show, an ex-CIA agent is now claiming that the Roswell extraterrestrial debacle, crash, whatever you want to call it, is real. Also, we have a new report saying that the Fukushima power disaster was a man-made disaster, and Alan West is claiming that Social Security is a form of slavery. So make sure you're getting the bonus show, davidpakman.com/membership. We'll take a break. We'll be back. A lot to talk about, including Mitt Romney.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Support the show for free by doing all of your Amazon.com shopping through the black banner at davidpakman.com. Click it, bookmark it, use it every time you shop. You can also become a David Pakman Show member, which is made possible in part by liberalbias.com. You may not realize this, Lewis, but we're getting more and more evidence that penguins are actually liberals and are part of a conspiracy to scare people about global warming. You can find out much more at liberalbias.com.
Terrifying.
I want to say hi to a new member, Gary Moriarty. Gary Moriarty, we're thrilled to have him aboard. And
we love the Irish.
Is Moriarty an Irish last name?
Oh, yeah.
How sure about that are you?
100.
100%?
Yep.
Just so you know, Gary, Lewis has been 100% sure about things in the past that he's been wrong about, admittedly. Like when you said you were 100% sure that ibuprofen was aspirin. Remember that?
Yeah, I got aspirin and Advil confused.
Right, but you were 100% sure at the time.
Moriarty is pretty different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gary Moriarty, welcome. Thank you for being a David Pakman Show member. It's great to have you.
Wish I had some Irish music.
Protester Al Neal of Fight for a Fair Economy in Ohio got some unusual silencing treatment during a speech by Governor Tim Pawlenty. And this was from a Romney supporter. A clash broke out at this Republican rally, and an older guy, stuffs a handkerchief in this guy's face to try to quiet him down. And this was apparently after sticking a water bottle in the guy's mouth already. Not sticks it in his face, sticks it in his mouth. Let's actually take a look at some of this video, courtesy of Crooks and Liars, Lewis, and then we'll get your thoughts on it. I know you have a lot to say. Here we go. I think we have it. So there's the guy.
No, with the plain dealer.
And then this guy just stuffs a handkerchief in the guy's mouth. Look at that, Lewis. This is unbelievable. And the guy just grabs it out from his mouth and puts it away. I can't believe the restraint of the guy who had the handkerchief stuffed in his mouth.
I would have knocked that old man out.
Really?
Yeah.
Even though it's an older guy?
Yep.
You wouldn't have felt bad about it?
Only if I killed him, I guess.
Well, that could happen. We know that that's taken place.
Yeah, okay, maybe I just would have elbowed him in the gut.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, this is despicable behavior. I can't believe it. And the guy afterwards said he acted out of character and he apologizes if he offended anyone. If you offended someone, you apologize. You don't apologize for the actual... That's the new thing, Lewis. You apologize because people were offended as opposed to apologizing because you did something wrong.
Yeah, the funny part about this is I guarantee you that guy is a big fan of the Constitution, too.
Oh, he of course supports the Constitution. How could you not?
Right.
He's a big fan of the First Amendment. He loves the Second Amendment, obviously, but apparently didn't like what was going on here. Now, just for comparison, I do want to present a little bit of video evidence here of how President Obama, someone from the left, dealt with a heckler at a protest. Let's take a listen, Lewis. I think it's just good to have some comparison.
Sure.
Bad rerun. And when you ask them, what specifically is your... Sir, I'm here to speak to these folks. You can hold your own rally. You're being rude. Sir, we're trying to talk to these people. I'll be happy to read your book. If you want to give me your book, I'll be happy to read it, but don't interrupt my conversation with these folks. All right?
A little bit different there, but I don't think we can read too much into that, right? I mean, of course, both on the left and right, everybody's the same.
Well, you could make that argument when it comes to some things. But,
Okay, a Romney donor says that low-income people, quote, don't understand what's going on. This was according to an LA Times article. They were on scene at a Romney fundraiser in the Hamptons, and reporter Maeve Reston caught up with a donor on the way into one of the events. Woman wouldn't reveal her name, but she said, I don't think the common person is getting it. My college kid, the babysitters, the nail ladies, everybody's got the right to vote. They don't understand what's going on. I just think if you're lower income, one, you're not as educated. Two, they don't understand how it works. They don't understand how the system works. They don't understand the impact. The recommended contribution for the event she was attending was $25,000 per person, Lewis. You may be interested to know. And this is interesting because we do have Romney on the record saying, I'm not concerned with the very poor. Of course, later he said he misspoke. It's interesting how you only misspoke when people got angry about what you said. Things that people don't notice you saying, you never misspoke there, of course.
no, that one was a doozy, though. But, I mean, the full sentence was, I don't care, I'm not concerned about the poor, there's a safety net there.
Right, which of course there isn't.
A safety net that he's trying to get rid of.
Exactly. And also, Romney's tax plan would give the richest 0.1% of Americans, many of whom are the ones that are attending these $25,000 per person fundraisers, an average tax cut of $264,000. Now, this is interesting because, yeah, the fact that some people don't know what's going on is actually going to lead them to vote for Mitt Romney against their own best interests, but in the best interests of the woman who's paying the $25,000 to go to the fundraiser. That's what's sad, because as we know, the more information you have about the reality of candidates' positions, the more liberal you're going to vote. And the more people that vote, the more likely the more liberal candidate will win, as we know, Lewis.
So you're saying there's some truth to what the Romney donor is saying?
It's true that a lot of people who are lower income don't know what's best for them in terms of who to vote for.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they shouldn't be voting for, we're not worried about them voting for Obama. Voting for Obama would actually be better for them. It would be an indication they do know what's going on. If they don't know what's going on, they're more likely to be on the side of the $25,000 donor.
Yeah, there is a huge lack of understanding across the board in this country on the right, it seems.
There are plenty of things, though, Lewis, that it's not just lower income people. It's the 99% don't understand, right? The 99% don't understand why the labor of big CEOs is worth hundreds or thousands of times more than the labor of that CEO's employees. It's true. The 99% don't understand that, right? The 99% don't understand how they did everything right. They went into debt to go to college because they were told they need an education. They bought a home, which you're told is your #1 investment. and they
Why they
still
were
have
granted that loan even though they couldn't afford it.
and they still have homes that are underwater. It's true. A lot of people in the 99% don't know what on earth is going on. Mitt Romney caught on video praising Obamacare as recently as 2010. Here's some audio of him talking about all the great things about Obamacare and Romneycare. Of course, things which are not constitutional, and they're just terrible, terrible things for this country. Let's take a listen.
And there's some differences. I like some of the similarities. I dislike most of the differences between my plan and their plan. The similarities are that we have an incentive for people to become insured. And the incentive works. We have 98% of our citizens in Massachusetts that are insured. So that's working. Wow. Another similarity is you can't be denied coverage, insurance coverage, if you have a pre-existing condition.
Oh.
Or if you change jobs, you don't need to worry about losing your insurance. So our insurance is entirely portable.
Interesting.
Those are perhaps the most important or well-known similarities. We also put in place an exchange, which allows individuals to purchase insurance at very low rates because you have the entire state as a pool of citizens. Everybody's in the insurance pool, and as a result, the rates are much lower than they otherwise would be. The differences, one is our plan was a state plan. I believe in federalism. I believe the 10th Amendment gives to the states the right
Okay, so then we hear him go into those distinctions. Really loving just about everything that's in Obamacare, Lewis. It's amazing, given that he wants to repeal it.
Yeah, I listened to the whole clip, and basically he states the major and important things about Obamacare. And then when he talks about the differences, he just starts talking about numbers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it doesn't really make sense.
Honestly, I'm getting kind of bored of even seeing him flip-flop. It's getting old.
It is.
Here's some interesting stuff about Obamacare, though. Here's a way to irritate your right-wing friends, okay? Because they will now follow this Republican meme that it is a huge tax increase, the biggest tax increase in history, Lewis. We've been hearing that, haven't we?
Right.
Let's look at the reality, okay? How many people would get tax credits versus how many people are likely to pay that fee/tax, which not even Mitt Romney agrees with himself about, which it is. 16 million people will get tax credits as a result of Obamacare, okay? 4 million people are likely to pay that tax for not having health care. So we've got net 12 million people getting a tax cut. Interesting. The average credit per person is going to be about $5,200. The average tax per person who chooses not to get health insurance if they can afford it is going to be about $600, about a $4,600 difference there, Lewis. And lastly, the total of tax credits is expected to be about $686 billion compared to about $54 billion in those tax penalties that people will receive, a $632 billion tax cut primarily to people who are middle class. Interesting.
Yeah.
Facts. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about facts as opposed to hyperbole. Now, here's something really interesting, Lewis. There is actually a real tax increase in Obamacare, but nobody's talking about it. The right's not talking about it. Why aren't they talking about it? As it happens, Obamacare does include a fairly significant new tax on incomes, one that conservatives should be screaming about instead of pointing to this stupid $600 penalty, which is actually still going to be part of a net tax decrease. There is really a tax increase in Obamacare, okay? The payroll tax. The payroll tax has two components. The OASDI, which is the Social Security tax, and HI, which is hospital insurance, which goes towards Medicare. Now, the Medicare part is about 2.9% on all incomes. The absence of a ceiling on that as compared to the Social Security tax makes it less regressive than the Social Security tax. The Obamacare tax increase makes it less regressive by adding 0.9% on incomes over $250,000 if you're married and filing jointly, or $200,000 if you're single. It also does something else. It requires people in that income category above $200,000 per year to pay a new 3.8% tax on investment income. This is capital gains, dividends, etc. This is new, Lewis. No one has ever had to pay a payroll tax on anything except for wages before. I think this is good. I happen to think this is a legitimate tax. Where are Republicans on this? They're obsessed because they've been wrapped in with this individual mandate on talking about the $600 penalty. They're not talking about the real Obamacare tax increase. That's fine with me. I don't think they should be talking about it. It's a perfectly legitimate tax in my opinion. But why aren't they? I think it's because in the past, they've already failed when fighting payroll tax increases. So again, picking and choosing something they think they can get some momentum with, ignoring the actual tax increase in Obamacare, that's fine. You know, Good for you. Ignore it.
And it is a little more complicated to explain and to get into, and people just don't want to hear it. They've done an incredibly good job at mischaracterizing Obamacare and the mandate.
As we know, nuance is bad on the Republican side.
Right.
All right, let's take a break. Facebook.com/David Pakman Show. Get a David Pakman Show t-shirt like the one Lewis is wearing, made from recycled materials at our website, davidpakman.com. Stay tuned. We'll be back. Can you get fired for what you say on Facebook? Stay tuned.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Welcome back to the David Pakman Show. Joining me is Josh Idelson, contributing writer covering labor for Salon and for These Times. Also, Josh Idelson on Twitter. The article I was reading, Josh, is great, and it talks about this question of whether you can be fired for what you post on Facebook. And it seems that the answer is, while there may be one legal answer, it seems to be kind of dependent on where you work and who your employer is, does it not?
Yes, it does. Thanks for having me back, David. And the short answer is it's complicated. In general, the first point I make in the Slate article, which most people don't realize, is all things being equal, the presumption is your boss can do whatever they want in terms of what they punish you for or how they punish you. We live in an at-will employment country, and so unless you're in a state that has more protections, or you're covered by a union contract, or you're a government employee, presumptively, your boss can fire you for almost anything, with a couple exceptions. That's why a group of workers at 3 different workplaces have filed what will be precedent-setting cases that'll be heard by the labor board, which will decide how wide one of those exceptions is. So all things being equal, take the example of a worker who was fired for having a John Kerry bumper sticker on their car in 2004. That's legal. The exception, as you were alluding to, is concerted activity. Under the Labor Relations Act from the 1930s, companies can't punish you for protected concerted activity, meaning workers banding together and doing something together to improve their working conditions. Now, people associate that with going on strike or wearing a union button, but you don't have to be in a union or trying to get a union to be doing concerted activity. Instead, there's a series of tests the labor board and the courts have come up with, all of which are somewhat subjective to very subjective. And what we're going to find out from the National Labor Relations Board over the coming months is how they're going to apply those tests to Facebook, where a lot of conversations between workers are happening now that used to happen at a water cooler or at a bar.
So let's knock out a few of the obvious things that will probably come up for a lot of people. Number one, whenever you hear something like this, you hear people talk about the First Amendment. But the First Amendment doesn't apply here because that's really about the government's right to abridge free speech. It doesn't. Is it at all relevant to this discussion?
Exactly. Like you say, it's relevant culturally. It's relevant in terms of what our values are, that we're in a country where we think people should have the right to speak freely, and especially when you're not even at work. That whatever kinds of impositions you have to put up with 8 hours a day at work, we imagine that once you go home, you can say and do what you want, but you can't. The First Amendment doesn't protect you from the government. It protects you from the government, but it doesn't protect you from the mini-government of your employer cracking down on your right to speak freely, even if the speech happens outside of work.
The other thought I'm having is, of course, with Citizens United, we now know that corporations are people, man, and that, of course, money is speech. So could a private employer legally fire you simply for finding out from, fundraise.org about your political donations?
Yes, they could.
That would be legal.
Absolutely. The only exceptions are in the Civil Rights Act or related laws, or the labor relations protection for concerted activity. But firing you for, unless it's, say, your religion or you have greater protections under state law, generally you can be fired for whatever kind of activity you're doing outside of the workplace. And people are. There are examples where people get fired because they had a threesome outside of work, or they drink alcohol outside of work, or they're involved in a political organization that the company doesn't like. And it was interesting to me, when I interviewed the labor policy director at the Chamber of Commerce about this, and I asked, well, why should companies have this power? He defended it, and he said, well, management needs to be able to make sure that the right person is in the right job, and that includes temperament. And the example he gave is, oh, well, a racist. What if someone's doing racist things outside of work? Should the company really have to protect them, have to continue to pay them at work? And so business groups in the United States, conservatives in the United States, some others, like the idea that the company has absolute discretion to choose who should or shouldn't be in the workplace, even based on things that people do outside of work.
All right, so then let's talk specifically about Facebook a little bit. I mean, the logistics of Facebook are that depending on what your profile settings are, right, people you are not friends with may not be able to see what you have posted. Therefore, the question becomes, if the company receives word of what an employee has posted to Facebook third hand, in other words, from a third party who is friends with the employee but can't independently verify it, what's the situation there, right? I mean, screenshots can be doctored. Third-party reports are notoriously unreliable. What happens there?
So there is no requirement of due process in most workplaces in the U.S. The company can fire you over a rumor, and that includes a rumor about something you posted on Facebook, whether they've seen it or not. I mean, workers have been fired in the past over things they wrote in private letters. There's no requirement that the company have proof for why they're firing you. The only restrictions on the law are the couple reasons why companies can't fire you. And one of those is what's called protected concerted activity. That's what's protected by the Labor Relations Act. And we're going to see over the next few months how the Labor Board decides it applies to Facebook, to social media.
All right, excellent stuff. We've been speaking with Josh Idelson, contributing writer covering labor for Salon and for In These Times. You can follow him on Twitter at Josh Idelson. That's EIDELSON. Great stuff, Josh. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, David.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll be back with plenty more after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome back to the show. The best way to support the David Pakman Show is to become a member. We just added some great member benefits, including full 1-hour commercial-free video shows for members only, Lewis. Instead of getting the segmented clips on YouTube, which is only part of the show, get the full thing with no commercials as a member.
Why not?
It makes perfect sense. It's only logical.
Right.
Okay. Chris Christie blows up at a Jersey Shore heckler. This is interesting. Chris Christie was vacationing with his family at Seaside Heights, New Jersey, and he lashed out at a passerby who, according to TMZ, made a comment about Chris Christie's education policies. And as you know, Lewis, any sitting governor would flip out and physically threaten a passerby if they make comments about education policy.
No doubt.
Okay, let's take a look at some of that video here, courtesy of TMZ. Chris Christie on the boardwalk in Seaside Heights. Let's see here.
You're a real big shot. You're a real big shot. Shut your mouth off.
He's holding an ice cream.
Keep walking. Keep walking. Keep walking.
Mr. Governor.
This guy is unbelievable to me. But first of all, it's visually hilarious that he's yelling to the guy and saying, "You better keep walking," when he's holding up a cone of ice cream. He's got an ice cream cone at Seaside Heights, and he's threatening a guy physically by walking over to him and saying, "What, you've got a lot of guts? Keep walking, keep walking." Visually, it's hilarious. The guy has a knack for comedy.
Yeah, of course.
For physical comedy. But he does seem to really not have his temper under control, don't you think? Here's video which I never played for you.
Or his appetite.
It's from a few days ago where he lashed out, calling a reporter's question stupid and then calling him an idiot. Here we go.
On Monday, are you going to be addressing the legislature?
Did I say on topic? Are you stupid? On topic. On topic. Next question. Good. Thank you all very much, and I'm sorry for the idiot over there.
Okay, so there you go. Reporters who are asking questions. Imagine, it's really funny because the same politicians who say that a reporter who asks an off-topic question is stupid and an idiot are fine answering questions from reporters about stuff that's completely unrelated, right? That's not a big deal. They're not stupid and idiotic for doing that. But if a reporter manages to ask a question that's not related to what you want to talk about, obviously they're the idiots, Lewis.
No doubt.
He does have to control his temper, though. I mean, given Chris Christie's health issues, you have to assume when he gets this enraged, it would be a stroke or heart attack.
He looks like he's stressed out all the time.
He really does look like a guy who is not managing his stress well. No. I think that we can agree on that.
Yes.
So Chris Christie, there we go. Do you ever get that irritated when people like at, for example, a Krakatoa metal band show ask you to play a cover like that you guys don't play?
No. No.
You don't care?
Nope.
You'll just go into the cover about burning down a church and that's it. Whether they want Free Bird or not, you don't care. You do the burning down a church song.
That's right.
That's a good strategy.
Yeah.
Don't let it get to you.
I can only play the songs I know.
A teen was bitten on his neck as he walked down the street in Corpus Christi, Texas, in what appears to be some kind of a vampire attack. Police say that the 16-year-old boy was walking down Shoreline Boulevard, and he accidentally bumped into a man who turned around and bit him in the neck. According to senior police officer Julia Hernandez Garcia, apparently he left a bite mark and broke the skin and took some skin off. The teen was taken to the hospital by his mom. The suspect ran away after biting the boy's neck. This is a very unusual case, according to the police officer. I've been here for 27 years and I've never heard of anything like this. First we had the zombies, now we're dealing with vampires. What's going on here, Lewis?
I don't know. I think this is part of the zombie craze, to be honest. I don't want to classify this as a vampire attack. Right. I'd like to keep this in the realm of zombies.
So
I just think it happens to be a neck bite.
And then other people claiming that all zombie attacks should actually be in the vein of cannibalism. So by conclusion, really you want to categorize vampire attacks as cannibalism.
I think we can put both in the cannibalism category.
In other words, A equals B, B equals C, therefore
A equals C.
Exactly.
Right. Strange, but well, there was the one in China too. I mean, this is happening everywhere.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of flesh eating and flesh biting going on.
Reportedly, the vampire said, I know I just met you and this is crazy, but I just bit you and I have rabies.
Very clever. Yep. That's a real winner right there.
Wikipedia apparently is citing that.
Really?
Did you hear about the lifeguard who was fired for saving someone's life?
Yes.
This is kind of odd, but at the same time, well, I don't know. I don't want to give an on the one hand, on the other hand. I'll just tell you what happened. A group of lifeguards in Hallandale Beach, Florida, are quitting after one of their coworkers, Thomas Lopez, was fired for rescuing a drowning man outside the lifeguard company's zone of protected beach. Let's take a look at the video, Lewis, and see if we can figure out what exactly was going on here.
When duty called, Tom...
Oh, what's going on here? Okay, maybe we're not going to be able to get that video. Well, let me just tell you about it then. How about that, Lewis?
Okay.
Lopez was on duty at 1:45 p.m. in the afternoon. He was informed someone was drowning. He said, I'm looking, I don't see anyone. And then he was told the guy is down that way. He started running 100 yards down the beach. Guy was lying blue there and gasping in the shallows. Lopez saw the man had water in his lungs. He worked with an off-duty nurse to keep the man alive until paramedics arrived, basically credited for saving the man's life. However, the lifeguard company which hired him, which was subcontracted to by the city or state authority there in Florida, said, we actually weren't licensed or insured for you being a lifeguard there. We were only insured for you being a lifeguard in your delineated area. Therefore, we have to fire you. What do you think about this? On the one hand, I understand that. Imagine if something happens and this lifeguard makes the situation worse. All of a sudden, you've got a huge lawsuit, which would have been avoided if the guy just stayed in his zone. At the same time, is that really sound policy for Florida to be saying, we want to subcontract to this lifeguard company, but if one of your lifeguards saves someone's life somewhere else, we're not going to like that. They need to be left to die unless you're specifically contracted there. It's not really what a lifeguard does.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the name. He's a lifeguard.
Yeah, I think the attitude of anyone who would take that position, I think anyone would do the same thing. I think even if they told him they were going to fire him before he ran to save that guy, he would have saved the guy anyway.
I think you're probably right.
And hopefully he gets another lifeguard job somewhere else. Seems to be pretty good at it.
So they were reviewing what exactly happened and they were going to decide whether to give him his job back or not. Would you even want your job back if you had been initially fired? At the same time, maybe it was just a decision made in haste and they take it back. Maybe it would be okay to continue being a lifeguard. It's not like you're in an office with a boss who fired you and then you've got to deal with the boss. It's kind of a bureaucratic mistake if it is determined to be one and you sit on the beach there. Maybe it would be one of those situations where getting your job back would not be that awkward. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or what would you do?
I mean, you are pretty much working by yourself. I guess I would take the job back. But I can understand why they would want to and or feel the need to fire him. But like I said, I think any lifeguard would do it.
Okay. Let's go to your voicemails and emails, which I'm actually not able to find here, Louis. Tell me about where those are so that I can find those.
Yeah, those need to be retrieved, actually, by me.
Okay.
But I guess we can review what's on the bonus show.
Yeah, let's do that. So on today's bonus show, we will talk about a number of things. We'll talk about an ex-CIA agent claiming that Roswell is real. Does Louis equate that with the paranormal? What is Lewis's thought on extraterrestrial life? We'll find out about that. We'll also talk about a new report about Fukushima, which has now been deemed a man-made disaster, something Louis has been saying all along. Has he been vindicated or was he just lucky? We'll see. And Alan West, congressman from Florida, is claiming that Social Security is a form of slavery. Now, it might sound shocking, and many people would say he's saying that because he's black and he knows that it will get a certain response. I would argue that he is just actually citing libertarian philosophy on taxes, and it's not really anything new, just using different words to make it appear controversial. Get the David Pakman Show bonus show, davidpakman.com/membership. It's the best way to support the David Pakman Show.
All right, so I guess I'll take the lead here and read some of these emails.
Yeah, let's do that.
On the man stating that people don't die now from prostate cancer and breast cancer, saying that healthcare costs are being driven up because of advances in healthcare. I am so very proud to have voted against this crooked capitalist piece of poo politician. There's one. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Republicans live in their own little reality where facts are things to be feared and ran away from whenever possible.
Right.
And let's see if we can find another good one here. Of course, it's totally my fault for not preparing these ahead of time.
Of course. Make a note of that back there, guys, please.
Yeah, my fault. So according to this Republican congressional candidate, if the rise in healthcare costs comes from the increasing accessibility to better medicine and care, what is his plan to cut healthcare costs? Does he want to cut this improved medicine and care and take us back to the dark ages where the best medical treatment you could get was to pray for the church for help?
Well, a couple things on that. Number one, there are already people who are choosing not to get medical treatment and who are not taking their kids to get proper medical treatment because they believe that prayer is the way. Does it work? No. Very often they're actually charged with crimes. That's a good thing. But number two, yeah, there's a reason that there is a progressive side of politics and then there is the opposite of that. And it's sometimes stagnant. And it is sometimes regressive, where the idea is to go backwards as opposed to forwards.
Yeah. I mean, healthcare costs are constantly going up and advances keep coming in. So it is a good point, though. If that's how he claims things are going to go, how would he possibly cut costs?
Well, I guess if you buy into the internal logic, then you can follow that sequence. But of course, the internal logic in and of itself is completely absurd.
Right. On Mitt Romney getting tons of money after the Obamacare ruling, money is flooding in from businessmen who fear that they will have their ability to turn back on the palliative care of cancer children reduced by a marginal amount. What else here? Of course, the problem with these is that most of them are responses to other people's messages.
There you go.
But we got to go anyway.
Okay, that's going to do it for today's show. davidpakman.com/membership. All sorts of trouble in the Lewis side of production things today. It'll be resolved by tomorrow. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.